Nebraska took care of business against Northern Iowa in dominating fashion. So in today's video, I've rewinded the film, I've rewatched the game, and I'm going to go over my studs, my duds, and everything else from week 3 of Nebraska football. So really quick, we have a lot to talk about in today's video. Hey, if you're enjoying Nebraska starting off 3-0, I know I am, hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel or just a returning viewer, make sure to subscribe. I post daily Nebraska football content. Nobody else is doing that on Husker YouTube. So if you're a diehard fan of this program, please subscribe. You will not regret it. But without further ado, let's get into it, going over my studs and duds for Nebraska during week 3 of the college football season. Let's just go to my number one stud for the Huskers in the running back room. I've talked about Dante Dowdle. I've talked about Rahmir Johnson. It's finally time to talk about Emmett Johnson, who played very, very well versus the Panthers. People weren't really talking about him. I mean, you're reading articles about Nebraska, you're watching videos, everybody's talking about, some other players on this offense. Emmett Johnson's not getting enough love. He had 50 rushing yards on 4 carries, averaging 12.5 a carry. He had 1 touchdown. And then after that, he also had 43 receiving yards. Emmett Johnson led the team in all-purpose yards, period. Not only that, but he was the highest graded running back on the team according to Pro Football Focus. And honestly, he looked like a difference maker. Every single time Emmett Johnson has got on the field this year, he looks like he's trying to prove to the staff, hey, get me some more playing time. So I really like Emmett Johnson. I like his burst. And for that reason, he is my number one stud. I truly believe that Matt Rhule needs to utilize him more. Get him on the field because he's a weapon. He can be utilized. Yeah, I get it. Dante Dowdle's running back 1. I'm not debating that. I think Dante's played awesome. I think Rahmir's played awesome. But Emmett Johnson, every single time he plays, he's played well. Played great, actually. I get it to that point. So it'll be interesting to see what Emmett Johnson's role is versus Illinois. From all accounts, he's practiced very well throughout the week, so I don't understand why he's not getting more carries. But again, every single time he's played, when we actually see game film, he has been outstanding. So Emmett Johnson gets my first stud. I thought he was awesome. I thought he had some good burst. We'll see what happens versus Illinois, because that running back rotation is going to be critical in order for the Huskers to win that ball game. My first dud for Nebraska throughout northern Iowa was Malcolm Hartzog. So yes, Malcolm Hartzog did get an interception. We'll get that out of our system. Give him some props for that. It was an overthrown football. Malcolm Hartzog said, hey, I'm going to take advantage of that every single day of the week and pick up an INT. But other than that, I thought Malcolm Hartzog really, really struggled. He was the lowest graded player on the team for Nebraska, period, according to Pro Football Focus. And when Matt Rhule talked about missed tackling, that was his biggest con on defense. Matt Rhule was very disgusted with the lack of tackling, the lack of blown coverages, or a lot of blown coverages. Malcolm Hartzog, watching the film, he was responsible for a lot of that. He missed a lot of tackles. And this has been an issue over the last couple of weeks. So Malcolm Hartzog, hopefully he cleans that up. Again, I think he's been all right, but that was a really, really bad performance against Northern Iowa, and you want him to be a leader on this defense. He's a black shirt. You need him to play better, but again, this is the second time really where I'm coming away from a game saying, Malcolm Hartzog, he's missed tackles, he's missed assignments. We just can't do the song and dance anymore in a secondary that honestly lacks a lot of depth. So I want to talk about Malcolm Hartzog there. And also, again, I talk about this in every single one of my studs and duds videos. There's always going to be one person in the comment section who says, Wilson, how dare you say duds for Nebraska? These are student athletes. And to that point, I would say I always put things on a positive light. Okay, whenever I will tell you who's good, I'll tell you who's bad. And at the exact same time, these guys are professional athletes now. Okay, they're getting paid. They're probably getting paid more than you are at your job. So at the exact same time, like we can talk good about a player, but we should also admit when, okay, maybe they didn't play the best. So wanted to address that. Again, I say that in all of my Studs and Duds videos. It's a disclaimer. But let's get to a stud for Nebraska, Carter Nelson. What more can be said about this kid? He was the highest graded player on the team according to Pro Football Focus, a grade of 90. Now, if you're not familiar with that website, that is astronomical. That is incredible. And he's a true freshman. So Carter Nelson, every single time he gets on the field, just like Emmett Johnson, he makes a difference. He played very well versus UTEP when he got snaps. Played very well versus Northern Iowa when he got snaps. So he only had about 7 snaps actually in the entire game, but in those snaps, 4 catches for 48 yards and a touchdown. Wow. And I truly believe, I think he was only in actually for that first drive where they scripted the entire drive. So that was a point of emphasis for Matt Rhule. He said, hey, Card Nelson, he might not know the entire playbook just yet, but I'm going to script out the entire drive so he knows exactly what he's doing. I'm going to get him involved. And it worked to perfection. So shout out to Matt Rhule for scripting that first drive to get Card Nelson involved, but he was awesome. They got him involved. He's a weapon. We'll see what happens throughout his career. I assume his workload's just going to increase as the year progresses and he gets more confident with this playbook. We're blessed with this freshman class, guys. We have Dylan Raiola, Ja'Cory Barney, Carter Nelson, Vincent Shavers. Okay, like this is a very, very good freshman class. And there's a lot of guys who are good and we just haven't seen them play yet. So that's going to be a big talking point for the rest of the season and all of next offseason. Let's go back to a dud here for the Huskers. And this is a guy I talked about in my post-game video, my post-game live stream as well. I've been disappointed with Jamal Banks. We need to start having a conversation about Jamal Banks because I don't understand why he is not putting up the stats that I was expecting. Okay, in 3 games, he's had 7 catches for 76 yards, averaging just over 20 yards per game. To put that in perspective, he had 600 yards last season for Wake Forest. I truly believe if he had better quarterback play, he would have had 1,000. He's a game changer. He's a game wrecker. He's a guy who can just go up and get 50-50 balls. And I honestly don't even think Jamal Banks is playing that bad. He's getting open. I just think it's an issue of, honestly, I don't believe the pro-style offense is best fit for his abilities. I'm going to be completely honest with you. And I don't believe a run-first offense is best fit for his abilities because it's interesting we're having this conversation because I don't necessarily think he's playing that bad, but he's just not producing on the stat sheet, and that's not what I would have expected from a guy who is a legit NFL talent like Jamal Banks is. So we'll see what happens. We're not pressing the emergency button just yet. We're only 3 games in. But we will revisit this hopefully as a big week versus Illinois. I'm expecting it. Let's go back to the studs here. The entire offensive line gets a stud grade for them in the pass pro. I do not believe they gave a single sack versus Northern Iowa. Every single one of them graded in the 80s according to Pro Football Focus. So really, really good day, specifically from the tackles. I wanted to see that from Benhart. I wanted to see that from Corcoran. We saw it. In that same breath, though, my duds versus Northern Iowa. The offensive line in the run department. Most of the grades were in the 60s. That not very good. They didn't really give too many holes to Dante Dow, to Emmett Johnson. If they did, it was through the C gap, which is basically because the running back made a good play to break outside. So honestly, I'm not too concerned about that because the offensive line graded out pretty well in the running game the first 2 weeks. Credit to Northern Iowa though. Their defensive line did pretty well against us in that department and their linebacker core. But very interesting. The grade was not awesome in the running department. All right, I have a question mark grade as my next player here. So not a stud, not a dud, but a question mark. Stephon Thompson gets that. So Stephon Thompson got his first start for the Huskers, and I thought he played pretty well. 6 tackles versus Northern Iowa. We saw a lot of the flashes that he had at Syracuse. We saw why he was one of the best linebackers in the country with the orange, and he was one of the better graded players on this defense. But the reason why he gets a question mark is just because I need him to be consistent. I need him to do this every week because I didn't see that versus Colorado. I thought he struggled when he got in the game versus the Buffs. I thought he struggled when he got in the game versus UTEP. So we need him to be consistent, but I thought he played pretty well versus Northern Iowa. Hopefully he gets a stud grade later on. As of right now, he gets a question mark just because it's not been consistent. As always, we're going to end on a stud. Keep things positive. Ty Robinson was the highest graded player on defense once again for Nebraska. And I'm going to just make a claim. I believe Ty Robinson has been the best player on Nebraska's football team over the course of the season so far. He's been a game wrecker. He's been incredible. And I truly believe he's proving to NFL scouts not only why he should be drafted, but he should be drafted in the first 3 rounds. So been really impressed with Ty Robinson. He had another really, really good game. All right, guys, that's my studs and duds from Nebraska. Week 3 versus Northern Iowa. Let me know down below. What was your main takeaway from this performance? Who do you think played well, played poor? Let me know in the comment section. And hey, if you made this far in the video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And as always, folks, go Big Red, go Matt Rhule, and see you in the next one.